Okay, so we're talking about media pitches. Love them or loathe them, they are the lifeblood, I think, of the global media industry. And this is an interesting time of year for pitches because by this point, by October, most of the major reviews have concluded or are about to conclude, and marketers are starting to plan out reviews for next year if they're going to conduct them.
That's right. So historically speaking, the amount of business that is put up for review has been broadly consistent. Okay?
Yeah.
But the last 2 or 3 years, it's been very volatile.
Yeah.
If we look at 2015, Mediapalooza,
Yes,
which was an unprecedented year. That's right. So between 25 and 30 billion was in play. Mm-hmm. Last year, 2016, that went down to about 12 billion.
Yeah.
And this year, we think it's going to be even less,
Yeah.
about 10.
Yeah. And then looking ahead to next year, that's the kind of interesting thing. It's the question that we always get asked, like, is it going to be a big, busy market next year? We wouldn't be surprised if it doubles versus this year. Yeah. There's been some major pitches happening in 2017, but we think that the quietness of 2016-17 can be accounted for a lot of marketers actually working internally first. That's been our experience. And driven by some interesting inputs, right, and stimulus. So the ANA report in 2016, learnings that they've had around that, significant things this year like Mark Pritchard at P&G setting out his transparency action plan, all really important inputs I think that marketers are organising internally, they're getting ready, and then we're starting to kind of perhaps see the beginnings of some briefings for next year that we anticipate might be quite big.
That's right.
One thing that we observed as well was that in 2015 and 16, that there was quite a lot of retention by incumbent agencies was quite high. So relatively less amount of business shifted agency. And we think that that's accounted for by the fact that perhaps the marketers' briefs were still very cost driven. So they were really designed maybe to create competitive tension that squeeze the incumbent agency on cost, and then they retain the incumbent, but on better terms.
Yeah. But this year, that's right, we've seen something slightly different.
Yeah.
And in the reviews and the billings that we've analysed, it appears that about 70% of those reviews have actually resulted in a shifting of responsibility from one agency to another.
Yeah, and that's quite significant. So, and what's causing that? So, less than 30% we think has been retained by the incumbent agency, and that's quite unusual. So what's driven that?
I think it's two things. I think the first thing is that there is a general desire for change, to draw a line over where we were for the last 24, 36 months. And so perhaps a fresh start. And the second thing is the quality of the briefs that are actually going into the marketplace. I think the last 18 months of brands looking internally and getting their house in order has been reflected in just the quality and the improvement of the briefs that are going out to the marketplace.
Yeah.
And I think that's allowing the agencies to distinguish and differentiate themselves perhaps from the competitive set.
That's what it does. And so a fresh start on both sides. So maybe that's also indicative that agencies are not prioritising defending their incumbent relationships and preferring maybe to win new clients because that gives them the opportunity for them to change as well. So we're seeing the changing brief from marketers and maybe a changing ambition amongst agencies. And so 2017, we might look back and it'd be a year where there was some significant change on both sides.
That's right.
So looking ahead to 2018, so let's think about how the pitch brief may evolve even further. And the way that we've done that is we've pulled out some really interesting data from a report by the WFA that they conducted this year over the summer. And they went out to their members and asked them across a whole range of different actions that marketers were taking in media, which they had already, which of those they'd already done and what they plan to do in the future. Yeah. So we've pulled out some of the things that they plan to do in the future, and we're going to use those as a proxy, if you like, for elements that we anticipate might start to feature, or perhaps should start to feature more in pitch briefs. So let's have a look at those. Okay, so if we look at the numbers, you can see here around half of WFA members said they wanted to add liability for fraudulent inventory, and about the same amount to bring brand safety into agency contracts. So these are going to be relatively new initiatives, we think, in 2018 contracts and 2018 pitches. Advertisers taking more control of programmatic is a continuation of that trend, but still 40% say they plan to do more. A quarter of members will put data ownership clauses, critical, right, to add into contracts. And really good to see 20% there of the WFA members wanting to bring fairer agency compensation now, and we think that will be a critical, really major part, obviously, of pitches for next year, is improving the way that agencies get paid.
Yeah, and when these contract discussions take place as part of the process will also change.
Yeah.
So more and more reviews will have the contract discussion, or at least the heads of terms, agreed at the beginning of the process rather than left till the very end. So it will be a condition of entry into the process, which then allows the process itself to be focused on what's really important. You know, the agency's ability to provide thought leadership, to provide really smart data-driven strategies that will enable business growth. And I think that's where the biggest change we'll see next year.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe historically a bit price-focused. We've increasingly seen it be a bit more talent and strategic focused. We think that there'll be new initiatives finding their way into pitch briefs, particularly tackling things like ad fraud. So those may be some kind of three big components. So for those marketers out there that are planning 2018 pitches, let's kind of run through some of the things maybe they should be thinking about.
And it's all in the preparation, right?
It is, yeah. And so within that, so the first thing is to, I think now more than ever, take a long-term view of your agency relationship. You know, this isn't about driving down cost anymore. It's about defining the relationship and creating a long-term strategic partner in your agency and defining exactly what that should mean.
That's right. And within that, understand really clearly what role you want your agency to play in your business.
Yeah, exactly. And the third thing that is becoming more and more important and will be really big, I think, next year, is accountability. So setting the right KPIs, holding the agency to account for delivering business objectives, and also pushing accountability on things like fraud, like brand safety and stuff like that. That's going to be another big component. Okay, so good week for
independent media agencies in the UK.
Okay.
So in Campaign's top 10 new business ranking,
5
of the top 10 were all independents.
Okay, brilliant. Well done to them. Okay.
Bad week?
Bad week. Well, it's actually going to be a bad week for our little bookshelves here. This is the last Media Snack episode that we will be filming in this office. We're moving to our new premises at the weekend, much bigger and fancier. So these poor shelves will be in the skip, but join us next week for some brand new shelves and some more interesting things on Media Snack. Okay, question of the week. What do you think will be the main components of 2018 pitch briefs?
Fraud, talent, price, or whatever.
Please vote up there. That's your Media Snack for this week. Thank you very much for watching.
See you next week.
We think are going to be important to consider.
And it's all about the preparation.
It is, yeah. Is that what you're going to say on that?
Yeah.
Consider as a new type of pitch brief.
That's right.
I'm going to
no,
you start. Yeah, okay.